I think the hardest thing, I mean, I say this to people, you want to join Moora Moora? If you're not prepared to do work on yourself, don't bother. If you think you're going to put all your stuff out on blame everybody else, because you've got 30 people you can put your shit out onto, forget it. Because you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to look at yourself, whether you like it or not. And it ain't easy. Personal change is challenging. And it can be exhilarating. It can be liberating, and it can keep you present time, it can keep you alive, but I think the hardest thing for me is living here for all the time is my own difficulty with changing my particular way of working. And Chelsea and I have had a mediation on this matter, and I'll tell you that little story. But it's all very well to have the awareness, it's harder to actually live into being the difference. And so for me, I'm a bit like a general. And in a past life, I reckon I was a general, and I was told I had to go and live in community to learn how not to be a general. Okay, so I was the founder, the major founder, and therefore I was the dominant leader and all that, and that was necessary for the survival of the community, as was my overthrow. Early into the life of the community, where the community started to take hold of itself, rather than me directing it, right, or being the dominant energy. So I'm still here, they haven't kicked me out, and they felt like it at times, because when I've used the argument, well, over my dead body, they said they can arrange it. So for me, being able to accept being outvoted, even though I think I've got the wisest solution, the best answer, and everybody says, no, Peter, sorry, and learning to have the humility that goes with that has been great. And I think the hardest thing for me has been, I always wave the banner what I think is in the community interest, but in the process, and of course, and up against our individualism, and everybody wants to say, oh no, my friend wants this, or this individual wants that, or this individual needs this, and so forth. And how for me to have compassion for their need, and how that fits with how that can that be fitted within the community needs. That's been the biggest existential personal struggle, but it's also the existential struggle for every community that's trying to balance or synergise individualism, honouring of the individual with the group. But it's so easy for us to sacrifice the interests of the group for the individual, especially if they're our friends or our neighbour and so forth. So that's tough. And the story with Chelsea and I was that, Chelsea comes to meetings late, disorganised, she's a bit scatty, she's not prepared, all that, right? That's what my critique of her. And I
know it well.
Huh?
It's all right, they're all looking at me like, oh!
This is a while.
Heard it before.
Yeah, no, it's old news, right? And she was upset about me calling her out on this when she was a director. And we had this mediation, and in mediation you list your complaints, and she listed. And Shell says to me, Peter, I want you to come to the meeting with a soft heart. And I just went, oh.
And the other thing?
Well, that was enough.
No, that was two.
What was the other thing?
Soft heart, warm eyes.
Warm eyes? That's harder.
Well, it was the steely eyes that used to put me off sometimes. And I'd be like trying to facilitate a meeting, and I could feel you looking at me with a steely gaze.
Well, funnily enough, I've ignored that because I don't know how to change that one. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, that soft heart. So that's part of why Chance and I are together, and we dance with that one. So it's personal change is challenging, enriching, growthful. It makes life meaningful, and without it, we get pretty lost and bored and so forth. So I wouldn't be without that, and I celebrate that journey, and it's painful at times. So that's the high and the low is mixed in together. It can't be separated. It's not something over here, that's the high and that's the low. No, they're intermixed. So, okay.
So, yeah, what Peter said is exactly, I was thinking about, what's one of my greatest challenges, and I think it's finding the balance between, and this is where our friction often lies, where Moora Moora feels like work and like a job and not home. And, when I don't want someone over, critiquing my, timeliness or shabbiness, because it's home, and I feel like I have a kind of a pretty okay moral gauge on my commitment and how much I invest into what feels like work, and then what's fair, because you live and share the land, and what work I contribute to be fair, and not wanting anyone looking over. Yet it's interesting because my challenge is also when I feel that people are not at all contributing and taking what feels like advantage of those who are doing the vast majority of the work for long periods of time. And then I have this whole identity crisis where I will find myself judging those people, and not really wanting to, it's only really where it affects certain other people. You can see the chain of effect of when people are, being, fair, I guess, in some way or not, So, yeah, that's my biggest challenge, is like how to monitor my own contribution, how to not take on others' projections, and how not to project that onto other people. It does happen. Yeah. My biggest joys come when I see everyone celebrating something together, an achievement, or, for example, like little things, small things like putting in a solar farm, when we're all out there doing that together, and my kids are there, and they're equally part of the place. They feel they've never known anything different. They've all grown up here, and they feel so, I guess, in sync with what's going on, that they don't feel separate to that. And I really get a lot of joy out of those moments, or just floating around on the dam in summer, just feeling like, wow, this is amazing, and and everyone's just doing their thing and cohabiting. It's just simple sometimes. Yeah.